The giant's fist was about to crush her, until a human caught it midair. "My turn," he said, smiling. The sky above the alien city burned red and gold. Tall buildings stood broken like bones after a great fight. Smoke moved slowly between the ruins. Sirens cried in the distance, but no help was coming. The ground shook with every heavy step of the war giant as it walked through the street. Lyra ran until her legs felt like stone. Her breath came in sharp cuts. She could hear the giant behind her, slow but certain. Each step was louder than thunder. She turned a corner and reached a wide-open square with nothing to hide behind. The city was dead. Windows were dark. Doors were crushed. The war had ended hours ago, but death was still hunting. She stopped in the middle of the square. There was nowhere else to go. Her hand shook as she raised a small shock tool that barely worked anymore. The giant stepped into the open space. It was taller than the nearby towers, made of dark metal and thick armor plates. Its eyes glowed with cold light. It did not speak. It did not need to. Lyra stood straight even though fear pressed on her chest. She refused to beg. Her people had already lost too much. The giant lifted its arm. The fist was larger than her whole body. Wind pushed against her face as it rose high above. Time slowed. She thought of her home before the war. She thought of quiet mornings and warm light. She thought of the promise that someone would survive to remember them. The fist began to fall. A shadow moved between her and death. There was a loud crack, like metal breaking against stone. The fist stopped. Lyra opened her eyes. A human stood in front of her. He was smaller than the giant by more than 100 times. He wore a torn, dark jacket and simple boots. His hair was short and dark. His face was calm, almost relaxed. One hand was raised above his head. He was holding the giant's fist. The ground around his feet had broken into deep lines. Dust floated around him. The giant pushed harder, but the fist did not move. Silence spread across the square. The human looked up at the giant and smiled. "My turn," he said. The words were soft, but they cut through the air. Lyra could not breathe. Her mind refused to accept what her eyes showed.
Humans were known across the stars.
They were fast learners and clever traders, but weak in battle. No one feared them. No one sent giants to fight them. The giant pulled back and tried again. Its arm shook as it pushed down with full force. The human's arm bent slightly, then stopped. His feet sank deeper into the stone. With a sharp movement, the human pushed upward. The giant stumbled back. A wave of force rolled through the square. Broken stone lifted into the air. The giant took 3 heavy steps backward and crashed into a building. Metal screamed as walls collapsed. The human lowered his arm and rolled his shoulder, as if stretching. Lyra fell to her knees. Alien soldiers appeared at the edges of the square. They raised their weapons but did not fire. Fear moved through them like a disease. None of their training had prepared them for this. The human turned slightly and looked back at Lyra. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was normal, kind. She shook her head, still unable to speak. "Good," he said. "Stay behind me." The giant rose from the ruins. Its armor was cracked now. Light flickered in its eyes. It charged. The human stepped forward. He did not rush. He did not shout. He waited until the giant was close. Then he moved. He struck once. The sound was deep and heavy. The giant's chest armor folded inward. The massive body lifted off the ground and flew across the square. It hit the far wall and fell still. The alien soldiers dropped their weapons and ran. Lyra stared at the fallen giant. Smoke poured from its body. It did not move again. The human turned back to her and offered a hand. "Name's Evan," he said. She took his hand slowly and stood. His grip was warm and steady. "I am Lyra," she said. Her voice shook. "What are you, human?" Evan replied. "That is not possible," she said. Evan smiled again, but this time there was something tired in his eyes. "Yeah, I hear that a lot. Sirens grew louder. More ships moved above the city. The war was not done. A group of small alien fighters ran toward the square. One of them was taller than the others and moved with sharp focus. His name was Taro. He skidded to a stop when he saw the fallen giant. "What happened here?" he asked. Lyra pointed at Evan. Taro looked from Evan to the giant and back again. "That thing was hunting us for hours." Evan nodded. "It won't anymore." Energy weapons charged around them. A deep voice echoed from above, ordering capture, not death. Evan raised his hand slightly. "They want me alive," he said calmly. "That means you get a chance to escape." "No," Lyra said. "We do not leave you." Evan crouched and met her eyes. "Listen, I can take care of myself. You need to live. People need you." Taro grabbed Lyra's arm. "He is right. We move now." Evan stepped forward toward the incoming soldiers. His face became quiet and hard. As the energy cuffs closed around his wrists, the ground trembled again. Lyra felt it then. Something deep. Something waiting. This was only the beginning. The alien soldiers formed a tight circle around Evan as they advanced slowly, weapons glowing in red lines. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, studied him. He did not move his hands. He walked steadily, never panicking, never stepping back. Lyra and Taro followed at a safe distance, keeping to the shadows. Every step felt dangerous, every breath heavy with tension. The fortress they were taken to was enormous. It floated above the broken city on thick anti-gravity fields, glowing with alien energy. Its walls were dark and smooth, almost alive. Inside, the hallways were wide but cold. Light reflected off the polished floors, making shadows sharp and dangerous. Evan could feel the eyes of the soldiers around him, and he felt the subtle pull of power in the fortress itself. They brought him to a room full of strange instruments. Lights blinked, and panels projected images of his body and movements. He was scanned from head to toe. Alien researchers whispered to each other, pointing at the readings. They had never seen a human like him. One of them, taller and older than the rest, stepped forward. He looked like a commander, not a scientist. His name was Korinasha.
"You are far stronger than expected," Korin said, his voice sharp and cautious.
"Your body contains energy beyond normal human limits. Explain yourself." Evan smiled faintly. "I survived because I had to. That is all." Korin frowned. "Humans are weak. Your kind is known to be fragile. Yet you stop our war giant with one hand." Evan shrugged. "I guess I am not normal." The researchers made notes. They moved small instruments around him. Some tested strength, others tried to measure speed. The alarms in the fortress blinked and rang, but Evan stayed calm. He noticed the layout quickly, memorizing exits, hallways, and guard rotations. Each step of the soldiers gave him a picture of the fortress in his mind. Meanwhile, Lyra and Taro hid in the maintenance tunnels beneath the fortress. They whispered as they planned. "He is different," Lyra said. "No one could do what he did." Taro nodded. "We should free him before they understand fully. The longer he stays, the harder it will be." Back in the control room, Korin activated a device that emitted a pulsing light into Evan's body. The human did not flinch. His muscles tensed and relaxed, absorbing the energy. The room hummed louder. Sensors spiked, showing readings off the charts.
Korin stepped back. "This is impossible."
"Humans should not survive this." Evan's eyes were steady. "I told you, I survive."
"I do not fail."
The alien commander looked at the images projected in the air. He realized something terrifying. The more pressure applied to Evan, the stronger he became. His body adapted. This was not a normal human. This was a being that grew more powerful under danger. Outside, the fortress shimmered with energy. Small ships hovered, scanning the city below. The war was far from over. Lyra felt a chill. She did not know how Evan would survive, but she trusted him because she had no other choice. Evan noticed the faint vibration under his feet. It was a warning. The fortress was preparing to move. He smiled faintly. They wanted to use him, but they had already underestimated humans. The strongest power in the galaxy was often hidden. The day passed slowly. Evan pretended to rest, pretending to obey orders. Yet he listened, watched, and planned. He noticed the guards' habits, the way they relaxed after each rotation. He saw the weak points in the fortress walls and the chambers where energy was stored. Every observation became a tool, every movement a chance. Evening fell, casting the fortress in dim light. The city below glowed faintly, broken and quiet. Lyra and Taro moved closer, their shadows blending with the fortress walls. They found a small vent and listened. Evan's voice floated through a thin speaker. "I can feel it," he said softly. "The danger. I will not let it control me." A new figure appeared in the fortress corridors. She was a human, older than Evan and calm in her presence. Her name was Nina Asterisk. She had been captured months before and survived using her wits. She met Evan's eyes and nodded. There was recognition, understanding, and a silent agreement. They were not weak. The fortress alarms grew louder. Korn's voice echoed through the halls. "We cannot allow him to remain free. Bring the containment fields to maximum. Prepare for relocation." Evan smiled faintly, did not move quickly, but in his mind he traced every step needed to turn this moment to advantage. He could feel his body reacting to the stress, muscles ready, senses sharpened. Humans were underestimated, but underestimated humans survived. Lyra and Taro decided it was time. They would make their move. The tunnels allowed them to reach the holding chambers without being seen. Lyra whispered, "We are here. We will not fail him." As night fell, the fortress glowed ominously. The energy pulses inside made the walls hum. The human strength was growing quietly. Each second counted, each heartbeat mattered. Evan's eyes closed briefly as he felt the danger rise. Not panic, but excitement. This was not merely survival. This was awakening. The alien commander had underestimated the power of a human spirit, the adaptability that came from fighting when all hope seemed lost. Lyra knew it too. She had seen what happened in the square. She had seen the impossible. Evan stood quietly as the soldiers brought more restraints, unaware that the rebellion was already moving through the shadows. Nina appeared beside him, her presence steadying and strong. The two humans exchanged a look of silent determination. Together, they would not just survive. They would change the battle entirely. The fortress thrummed with energy, unaware that within its walls, the weakest species it ever considered insignificant was about to challenge everything. Human courage and intelligence quietly began its silent revolt. And in that moment no one knew what the day would end with, but it would not end quietly. The fortress moved silently above the broken city, floating as if the air itself obeyed the alien energy that held it aloft. Inside, Evan remained calm despite the restraints. His muscles tensed, then relaxed, learning to react to the alien tests. Each instrument, each sensor, gave him information. He memorized their patterns, studied the strengths and weaknesses of the people who had captured him. They believed he was trapped, but in his mind he was already free. Nina stood quietly beside him. Her eyes were sharp and calm. She had survived far longer than any human should have, navigating the fortress and avoiding death countless times. Together, she and Evan shared a silent understanding. They did not need to speak. Their movements and glances conveyed all that was necessary. Far below, Lyra and Taro moved through the shadowed maintenance tunnels. Their small group of rebels carried minimal weapons, relying on speed and caution. Each step brought them closer to the chambers where humans and other prisoners were held. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. She had never seen anything like Evan's power. If they reached him in time, they could make a difference. Inside the chamber, Korn watched the readings spike again. "This is not possible," he muttered. The human adapts to pressure. His strength grows with danger. Our models do not account for this. The other researchers murmured among themselves, unsure how to proceed. Some were fascinated, others fearful. Corin raised his hand, signaling a full energy test. Bright pulses shot into Evan's body, seeking to break him, to study him. Evan's muscles absorbed it, and his body reacted, bending slightly before locking perfectly into place. He did not scream. He did not beg. He simply adjusted. Hours passed, and the fortress itself seemed to hum louder. The alien guards rotated their shifts, moving weapons and observing from the hallways. Every movement was recorded. Evan's mind absorbed it all. He noticed a pattern. The guards grew predictable under routine. The instruments had limits. He discovered small weaknesses in the floor grids, in the air vents, and the energy flow through the walls. Every detail became a key in his plan. Outside the chambers, Lyra whispered to Taro, "The humans are stronger than we thought. They are not just fighting to survive. They are planning." Taro nodded, tightening his grip on the small weapon in his hand. "We follow the tunnels. We reach them before they are moved." Back in the chamber, Evan leaned slightly against the wall, pretending fatigue. Nina watched him carefully. She had seen enough humans break under pressure. Evan did not break. He absorbed it, learned from it, and turned it into strength. His mind raced, plotting escape routes, calculating timing. Every second mattered. Every misstep could be fatal. Corin activated a new protocol. Lights flashed, and a containment field lifted around Evan. Energy lines formed a cage, locking him in place. Yet even this, designed to restrain him completely, only slowed him. His muscles reacted instantly. He felt the energy pulse through him, and he bent it to his will. The cage cracked slightly where his strength pressed against it. He did not push too hard, only enough to test its limits. Lyra, Taro, and the small rebel group reached a junction near the holding chambers. They paused, listening to the faint sounds of equipment, to the soft hum of energy flowing. "We must move carefully," Lyra whispered. "One mistake and it will all be over." Meanwhile, Evan prepared for what he knew would come next. He did not fight blindly. He observed the guards, waiting for the perfect moment. Each pulse of energy, each glance of the sensors, provided information. He knew they would underestimate him again. Humans had always been underestimated in the galaxy. Night fell outside the fortress, painting the city below in shadows and firelight. Inside, the corridors glowed with artificial energy. Lyra and her team crept closer, moving through the shadows like ghosts. Every moment was tense, every breath measured. They reached a maintenance shaft and paused. Through a small vent, they saw Evan standing quietly, his body relaxed but alert, his eyes scanning the chamber. Nina gave a slight nod to Evan, signaling that the rebels had arrived. He recognized the signal immediately. He had already calculated a way to use the chaos that was about to come to his advantage. The containment field would hold the aliens' attention just long enough. The guards moved toward the chamber to adjust the field. Evan bent his fingers slightly, directing a subtle pulse of force through the floor. The containment field vibrated and snapped, startling the guards. In that moment, Nina slipped out of her bonds and moved toward the door. The small rebel group inside the maintenance shaft took their chance and moved quickly into position. The fortress shook slightly as alarms rang. Energy lines sparked and hummed with intensity. Guards shouted orders, confusion spreading as the humans acted. Evan took advantage of the chaos, using his strength strategically. He did not fight blindly. Every strike, every movement was calculated to disable, not destroy, to create openings, not waste time. Lyra and Taro moved quickly, cutting through the remaining locks and barriers. They freed prisoners of different species, who joined the small group silently, following the humans with hope and fear in their eyes. The fortress was designed to suppress life, yet here, life stirred and pushed back. The energy control room blared alarms as Corin realized that containment was failing. "The humans are escaping," he shouted. "Stop them at all costs!" Evan stepped into the hallway calm and ready. Nina followed, her movements precise. The rebels and freed prisoners formed behind them, a growing wave of determination and defiance. Every step brought them closer to the fortress control points, to the power sources, to freedom. The aliens tried to block their path with energy barriers, but Evan and Nina found weak points, bending and moving through the defenses. The guards were strong but predictable. Humans, underestimated as usual, adapted and used the fortress itself against them. Evan and Nina moved with a rhythm almost like a silent dance, avoiding attacks and creating opportunities for the others. Lyra led the freed prisoners, guiding them through the safest paths. Taro fought when necessary, using skill and speed rather than brute force. The fortress quaked as its energy systems overloaded in some areas. Sparks flew from panels. Doors jammed, then opened unexpectedly. The humans used every flaw, every opportunity. Even the walls seemed to respond to their movements, though the aliens did not understand why. Through the chaos, Evan's mind remained sharp. He calculated the next steps, watching the commander's moves, predicting the alarms, understanding the weaknesses of both soldiers and fortress. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, but here, in this fortress above a broken city, they would prove their true strength. Lyra saw Evan push a massive console aside with one hand, creating a path for the group. She realized fully then that humans were more than just clever or brave. They adapted. They grew stronger when cornered. The impossible became normal to them. As they moved deeper into the fortress, the energy core of the ship glowed brighter. Evan glanced at it, understanding the danger. The aliens intended to use it against many worlds, not just their city. He took a deep breath. Humans had survived against giants and machines before, but now they were not just surviving. They were fighting back with purpose. The human's eyes met Nina's. She nodded, a silent agreement. They would not just escape. They would stop the fortress from being a weapon. They would fight not for survival alone, but for the future of many. And as the night stretched on, the small group of humans and allies moved with quiet determination, ready to face whatever the aliens would throw at them next. The fortress, once thought unstoppable, was about to learn that the human spirit could never be contained. The fortress corridors were alive with flashing red alarms. Guards shouted orders, but chaos had already taken hold. Evan and Nina moved quickly, but carefully. They led the small group through twisting halls, avoiding patrols, and using their strength and intelligence to overcome obstacles. Each human and freed prisoner moved with purpose, understanding that every moment mattered. The energy systems of the fortress began to destabilize. Sparks flew from broken panels, and metal groaned as pressure valves released steam and energy in dangerous bursts. The humans used these distractions to their advantage, moving with the flow of the building instead of against it. Evan's mind calculated every step, every turn, every potential trap. He had grown used to the energy pulsing through the fortress walls, and now he could predict it, using it to shield and guide the group. Lyra followed closely, guiding freed prisoners. Taro moved at the rear, protecting the group from sudden attacks. The humans and aliens now worked together, an unlikely team against a common enemy. Even small children and older aliens followed their lead, trusting the humans to guide them through the chaos. In a large chamber ahead, they encountered a squad of elite alien soldiers. These were taller and stronger than the ones in the corridors. They raised energy weapons, blocking the only exits. Evan stepped forward, his body tensed, his mind clear. He did not fear them, because he had learned that strength was not only in muscle but in strategy. He feinted left and then struck right. The force of his punch sent one soldier crashing into the wall. Another tried to attack him with a staff, but Evan twisted, using the soldier's own momentum to throw him backward. The rest hesitated, uncertain how to handle a human who moved with such skill and power. Evan's calm presence unsettled them more than his strikes. Nina followed, using speed and agility to disarm the remaining soldiers. Lyra and Taro directed the prisoners, moving them safely through the chamber. The humans had become a wave of force that the alien soldiers could not contain. Each step forward was precise, deliberate, and unstoppable. As they moved deeper into the fortress, they entered the core chamber where the energy weapon was controlled. It was massive, glowing with intense blue light. The walls hummed with dangerous energy, Guards surrounded the core, ready to defend it at any cost. Evan stopped for a moment, studying the room. He noticed weak points in the guard positions and the placement of the weapon controls. He had calculated a plan. He turned to Nina. "We disable it first. Then we handle the guards." She nodded, understanding instantly. Together they moved with careful precision. Evan used his strength to lift heavy panels and create barriers, protecting the group from energy bursts. Nina moved among the guards, disarming and disabling them with calculated moves. The freed prisoners helped where they could, pushing controls and blocking paths. The fortress itself seemed to resist them, but the humans adapted with every challenge. Corin and the other commanders watched from a control balcony above. Their faces were tight with fear and disbelief. They had designed the fortress to be perfect, unstoppable, but it was crumbling. Their soldiers were being outmaneuvered by humans, creatures they had dismissed as weak. The energy core began to pulse violently. It was unstable, threatening to explode. Evan realized that they needed to act quickly. He shouted instructions, moving with precision. The humans and allies worked together, following his commands without hesitation. One wrong move could trigger a catastrophic release of energy, but they trusted Evan's plan. With a final surge of strength, Evan lifted a massive control panel, redirecting the energy flow. Sparks flew and alarms screamed, but the weapon's energy stabilized. Nina disabled the final locks, and the core went quiet. The chamber was still, except for the heavy breathing of the humans and aliens who had survived. The victory was temporary. Corin activated the fortress's self-defense systems, doors slamming and automated weapons preparing to fire. Evan knew that they had limited time to escape. He signaled to Lyra and Taro, "Follow me." "We move now!" The group ran through twisting corridors, avoiding traps and weapons. The fortress groaned and shifted as the energy systems struggled to maintain control. Sparks and debris fell around them, but they did not stop. Every step was precise, every movement calculated. The humans led with courage and skill, showing the aliens the power of adaptability and intelligence. Outside the core chamber, a group of elite alien soldiers blocked the main exit. They raised their weapons, ready to fire. Evan stepped forward. He did not hesitate. With a sudden burst of strength, he threw one soldier aside, then another, clearing the path. Nina and the others followed, disarming and disabling the remaining guards. The escape route led them to the fortress hangar. Ships hovered, ready to leave for distant worlds. The humans and their allies moved quickly, boarding a small transport. Evan took the controls, his hands steady and confident. Lyra, Taro, Nina, and the freed prisoners settled inside. The engines roared to life. As the transport rose into the sky, the fortress behind them began to shake and crack. Energy systems failed, and the massive structure groaned under its own power. The humans watched, knowing that they had not just survived, but had struck a decisive blow. The stars stretched before them. Freedom was close, but the battle was not over. The humans had shown that they could fight back, that they could survive against impossible odds. They had proved that courage, intelligence, and adaptability were as powerful as any weapon. Evan looked at the group around him. They had followed him, trusted him, and fought alongside him. Humans were often underestimated, but here, above a broken city and a destroyed fortress, they had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. The fortress began to collapse completely, its lights flickering and its walls breaking apart. The humans and allies watched from their small transport, feeling the weight of what they had achieved. They had survived. They had won. But the universe was vast, and more dangers awaited. And yet, for the first time, they felt the strength of hope. The impossible had been achieved. The humans had shown that even in the darkest hour, they could rise and fight, not just to survive, but to protect others and change the course of events across worlds. The small transport floated through the darkness of space, carrying humans and freed allies away from the collapsing fortress. Stars stretched endlessly around them, and the lights of distant planets glimmered faintly. The group remained tense, knowing that the alien forces had not given up. Corin and the surviving commanders would not allow this defeat to stand. Evan stood at the front of the transport, his hands steady on the controls. Nina and Lyra checked the systems, while Taro kept watch over the exits and hatches. The freed prisoners sat quietly, exhausted but alert. Each person understood that their survival was fragile and depended on the humans leading them with skill and courage. Suddenly, alarms blared. Sensors detected enemy ships approaching fast and numerous. The humans' first instinct was to prepare for defense, but Evan quickly assessed the situation. "We do not need to fight them head-on," he said calmly. "We are small and fast. They will not expect it." He adjusted the transport's course, weaving through asteroid debris and space wreckage from the collapsing fortress. The alien ships followed, firing energy weapons. The blasts shook the transport but did not stop it. Evan's reflexes were sharp, moving the controls with precision. Each dodge brought them closer to safety. Lyra watched, her eyes wide. "How can one human move like that?" she whispered. Nina smiled faintly. "Because he does not fight like the rest. He adapts." The aliens underestimated humans, thinking them fragile and easy to destroy. They did not account for human creativity and quick thinking. Evan used the environment to their advantage, hiding in asteroid fields and using debris as cover. The smaller alien ships could not maneuver as quickly, crashing into wreckage or being forced to turn away. Meanwhile, other humans on Earth had noticed the fortress activation. Messages and signals had been sent to warn of the weapon. Earth ships appeared, fast and small yet countless in number. They were not the massive fleets that the aliens expected, but they were smart, coordinated, and relentless. Each ship moved in perfect patterns surrounding the alien forces. Evan noticed the human reinforcements and smiled.
"They are here," he said. "We are not alone. The alien ships were caught off guard."
Their sensors could not process the sheer number of small, fast-moving crafts. Each human ship worked as part of a larger plan, covering others, striking weak points, and protecting the transport. The humans fought with strategy and coordination, not brute strength. Evan directed the transport toward the edge of the battle. Small blasts of energy zipped past, but the humans and allies moved as one. Taro helped guide the prisoners, keeping them calm and organized. Lyra checked the transport systems ready to assist with any damage. Nina stayed by Evan, alert and ready to act. The alien commander realized too late that they had underestimated humans completely. Their massive ships were powerful, but slow and rigid. Humans adapted to the chaos, using speed, agility, and intelligence to turn the tide. They worked together across space, showing a unity the aliens had never faced. Evan saw a chance to strike. He directed the transport closer to the alien flagship, weaving between faster ships. Nina helped coordinate movements. They launched small pulses of energy from the transport, targeting control systems and engines. The alien flagship faltered, slowing down and leaving gaps in its formation. The Earth fleet moved in perfect synchronization. The alien ships, once confident, now struggled to respond. Their formation broke apart under constant, precise attacks. Humans had shown that even small and seemingly weak forces could overwhelm larger, stronger enemies when they worked together. Evan took a moment to breathe. The transport was still functional, and the freed allies were safe for now. The humans had achieved what no one thought possible. They had stopped the fortress weapon, defeated elite soldiers, and survived against an overwhelming alien force. Yet there was no time to celebrate. The alien commander had one last plan. A massive energy wave began to build from the flagship, aimed directly at Earth. Evan calculated the trajectory and timing. He knew that if they did not act quickly, the wave could destroy cities and lives across the planet. He turned to Nina. "We stop it now. There is no other choice." She nodded, understanding the risk. Together, they prepared the transport to intercept the energy wave. Lyra and Taro guided the prisoners, ready to assist in any way possible. Every person understood the danger, but fear did not stop them. Humans had learned that courage and quick thinking mattered more than size and power. The transport moved into position. Evan adjusted the controls with skill, aiming for the precise point to block and redirect the energy. The wave approached, glowing intensely, shaking the transport. The humans braced themselves. Energy crackled around them, but Evan's strength and calculation held firm. With a sudden surge, the transport released a counter-energy pulse. The wave collided with it, sparking and glowing. The energy shifted, redirected, and finally dissipated safely into space. The alien flagship staggered, its systems overloaded. The battle had turned completely in favor of the humans. Earth ships moved to finish the engagement. Alien forces retreated, unable to withstand the coordinated human response. The humans and allies in the transport watched as the enemy fled into the darkness of space, defeated and humbled. Evan exhaled, finally allowing himself a moment of relief. The group around him looked exhausted but alive. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes shining. Taro nodded, proud and amazed. Nina placed a hand on Evan's shoulder, silent approval and trust. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds, fought with intelligence, strategy, and courage, and changed the course of battle. They had proven that size and power alone did not determine strength. Adaptability, unity, and determination were just as important, if not more. The transport moved away from the battlefield, carrying the humans and their allies towards safety. Stars stretched ahead, and freedom felt close. They had survived, and they had won. But the universe was vast, and challenges would come again. For now they had shown the galaxy the truth about humans. They were not weak. They were more than clever or resilient. They were adaptable, courageous, and unstoppable when driven by purpose. And as the transport moved through the quiet darkness, the humans knew that their fight was far from over, but that they would face it together, stronger than anyone had ever expected. The transport moved silently through the stars, carrying humans and their allies away from the ruined alien fortress. The galaxy stretched endlessly, vast and full of danger, yet for the first time in a long while, the humans felt the calm after battle. Lyra watched the stars, her mind still on the broken city and the people who had been left behind. Taro checked the transport systems, making sure nothing had been damaged in the escape. Nina stood near Evan, calm and steady, her eyes observing the group with quiet satisfaction. Evan sat at the control panel, fingers moving across the instruments with precise movements. His mind was already planning the next steps, calculating their path through space, considering supplies, and anticipating possible threats. Even in victory, he knew the galaxy did not forgive weakness. They were not safe yet. Every choice could mean survival or destruction. Lyra approached Evan carefully. "We did what no one thought possible," she said softly. "We survived, and we stopped them." Evan nodded, his eyes focused on the stars ahead.
Yes.
"But the galaxy is larger than one fortress or one enemy. We need to prepare for what comes next. Humans are not just survivors. We are fighters, thinkers, and protectors. We will not wait for the next attack. We will meet it head-on." The freed allies looked around, slowly gaining hope. Many species had seen humans as weak, easily defeated and insignificant. Now they saw the truth. Humans were adaptable, intelligent, and brave. They had fought giants, defeated elite soldiers, and stopped a weapon that could have destroyed worlds. That truth spread quietly among the group, strengthening resolve and inspiring courage. As they moved toward a safe planet, a signal appeared on the transport sensors. It was a small human fleet arriving from Earth to provide support. The ships were modest in size, but numerous and coordinated. Their presence reminded everyone that humans were never truly alone, that intelligence, strategy, and teamwork were their greatest strengths. The fleet joined them, guiding the transport to a secure location far from the battlefield. Evan watched the fleet, understanding the significance. "They learned quickly," he said to Nina. "Humans adapt faster than any other species. That is why we survive." Nina smiled faintly. "And why we can protect others." The transport landed on a quiet green planet. The air was fresh, and the ground solid beneath their feet. It was not a place of grandeur, but it was safe for now. The freed allies stepped out, stretching and breathing the new air. Lyra knelt to touch the soil, feeling life and hope for the first time in days. Evan and Nina observed the group, ensuring everyone was safe. Taro checked the perimeter, making sure no threat had followed them. The humans had survived by fighting, thinking, and adapting. Now they would rest, rebuild, and plan for the future. Even in this moment of relative peace, the galaxy still held dangers. Corin and other alien commanders had not forgotten. They would return, seeking revenge and control. But humans had proven a simple truth. Courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome any force, no matter how powerful. Lyra approached Evan, curiosity and admiration in her eyes. Why do humans fight like this? Why not hide, wait, or surrender? Evan looked at her, calm and firm. Because we refuse to give up. Because we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Because we grow stronger when the world tries to break us. That is human nature. We adapt. We survive. We fight for more than ourselves, Nina added quietly. And we never underestimate what we can do. Even the impossible is possible if we try. The freed allies listened, their faith in humans solidifying. They had seen strength beyond size, bravery beyond fear, and intelligence beyond expectation. Humans were no longer the weak, insignificant species the galaxy had believed them to be. They were leaders, protectors, and innovators. The planet offered time to recover. Supplies were distributed, minor injuries treated, and stories shared. The humans trained the freed allies, teaching strategies, techniques, and the value of teamwork. The galaxy could still be dangerous, but for the first time, many felt hope. The strength of humanity had become an example, inspiring others to fight alongside them. Evan and Nina watched as Lyra, Taro, and the others worked together to create a small community. The humans had survived impossible odds, defeated elite enemies, and prevented destruction across worlds. Their courage and ingenuity had changed the course of history. At night, under a sky filled with stars, Evan stood looking toward the galaxy. He knew more challenges would come, that dangers waited in distant systems. But humans were not weak. They were survivors, fighters, and protectors. They had proven that even against impossible odds, they could succeed, and that knowledge spread quietly, preparing them for whatever lay ahead. Lyra joined him, standing quietly at his side. "Do you think the galaxy will ever see humans the same way again?" she asked. Evan smiled faintly, looking at the stars. "They will, because we have shown what we can do. Humans may be underestimated, but we will never be stopped. The future belongs to those who are willing to fight for it, and humans are ready." The group stood together, a mix of humans and freed allies, looking at the stars with determination. They had survived, they had won, and they had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome any force. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers, but for the first time the humans knew they were ready for whatever came next. The transport rested on the quiet planet, safe for now. The humans and their allies looked toward the stars, ready to face the future together. The story of one human stopping a giant and changing the course of battle spread slowly through whispers and transmissions. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Never underestimate humans. And from that moment, humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun.